The context or the backdrop for the gospel passage is the celebration of the Feast of the Dedication in Jerusalem. This feast celebrates the consecration of the second temple built by the Maccabees. The place where the glory of the Lord abides had to be consecrated or set apart by God for a sacred purpose. When the Jews were wandering in the wilderness, the tabernacle containing the Ark of the Covenant had to be consecrated. Later on, the first temple in Jerusalem, built by Solomon, was consecrated. These places were consecrated because they were the dwelling place of God. The temple was the sacred place of union between God and man, the place where man met God, where man offered perfect, rather imperfect, atonement sacrifice to God. In the midst of the most sacred place on earth for the Jews, the temple, Jesus claims, "I and the Father are one." The Jews knew exactly what Jesus was claiming, that he was equal to God, that he was claiming to have the same authority as God. Claiming to come from God or having the authority equal to God was blasphemy. Jesus claimed as man to be divine. Blasphemy was a crime punishable by stoning to death, as stated in Leviticus chapter 24, verse 16. He who blasphemes the name of the Lord shall be put to death. All the congregation shall stone him. Jesus refers to himself as the one the Father has consecrated and sent into the world. By claiming that he was consecrated by the Father, Jesus was claiming a personal knowledge of the Father. For Jews, the temple was consecrated and set apart for a holy purpose, the place where the glory of the Lord abided. They also considered the Sabbath to be consecrated. An altar would be consecrated. Priests in the Old Testament would be consecrated. Prophets would be consecrated. Kings would be consecrated. Jesus was claiming that his consecration was greater than that of the temple or anything else man made. This is the first time in St. John's Gospel that Jesus claims to be consecrated, the one sent from the Father. The Feast of the Dedication of the Temple, as the background for Jesus revealing that he was consecrated, is very important. The tabernacle in the wilderness, the first temple built by Solomon, and the second temple built by the Maccabees, all pointed to or foreshadowed the new temple, Jesus' body, the new temple where the glory of God would abide. The sacred humanity of Jesus Christ is the definitive dwelling place of God. It takes the place of the temple, the holiest place on earth. Jesus' body, his sacred humanity, from then until all eternity, becomes that sacred dwelling place where man encounters God. The temple no longer was a place, a physical place built by stones, but a person, a divine person who was sent by God. He claimed that the temple, a physical building, was no longer needed to know of God's presence in the midst of his people. Jesus was claiming to be that divine presence, to be God's presence, God dwelling in the midst of his people. The Father dwelt imperfectly in the temple, but now he dwells perfectly among his people in the person of Jesus. Jesus asked the Jews to state their motive, their intention for wanting to stone him. Before this, he had cured the man born blind. And immediately after this passage, he raises Lazarus from the dead, his greatest public miracle. The deeds of Jesus were evident to the Jews. The Jews said, "It is not for a good work that we stone you, but for blasphemy, because you, being man, make yourself God." They did not recognize in his deeds and miracles one sent by God. If Jesus were not doing the works and deeds of God, then the Jews would have been right. Jesus was not claiming who he was on mere words alone, but on what he did, what he was sent by the Father to accomplish. From now on to Jesus' eventual capture, the attempt to arrest him becomes more intense. Interestingly, the gospel passage closes with people coming to believe in Jesus. What a stark contrast from the beginning of the gospel, where they're trying to stone him. The gospel starts out with people in disbelief and ends up with people embracing him, people believing in him. Jesus returns to the exact spot where his public ministry began, to the place where John the Baptist was baptizing, to the place where he was baptized by John the Baptist. Perhaps this shows the link between Jesus' consecration from the Father and our own consecration at baptism. Through the waters of baptism, we are set apart for a holy purpose. God's own divine life comes to dwell within us. As God the Son, Jesus, is Son by nature, we become sons through adoption. We become his living temples, temples not made of stone, but temples built up and made by the Spirit of the living God.